Aleichem, everybody. Welcome one, welcome all. Those who are joining us live, those who are joining us on Zoom, on Facebook, on YouTube, those who are watching at a later time. Mazel tov, as we now have concluded Sefer Hafla'ah, and we are entering and moving on to Sefer Shvi, the seventh book of the Rambam, Sefer Zroim. We just concluded a short book. We're about to start a longer book. And to be Messiahing the Sefer, we have a big honor of having together with us the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Wollberg. Rabbi Wollberg, thank you very much. Yeshakech, thank you for joining us from the Holy Land.
It's my honor. My pleasure and honor.
So there's obviously a lot to talk about, and I'm sure we'll hear at least beforehand some insight in Sefer Hafla'ah, something that you can enlighten us with that you've come across in the Sefer that you'd like to share. But I also understand that a personal mazel tov is in order to you because you've just concluded recording the entire Rambam, all three Perokim. I occasionally listen to your Shiurim and very much enjoy them. So mazel tov, mazel tov.
Thank you very
much. So two questions. First of all, I know this is discussed in a lot. Can someone fulfill the mitzvah of limud haTorah by listening to your Shiurim? Does that relate to how they can fulfill limud harambam? Should people be saying along the words? And I say this a little bit with some agenda because I also am in the process of giving Shiurim and Rambam, which are on Chabad.org, and people ask me this question all the time. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts or insights as you've now concluded a monumental project yourself.
I'll be honest with you. I just had this discussion with somebody, and that is somebody told me, I was in New York, somebody tells me by Chasna that, when you start Rambam, you learn Sefer HaMitzvahs, and not that the whole minyan HaMitzvahs, Mitzvahs Hashem, Mitzvahs Leisas, and it can be quite long. So he says what he did is he's traveling, so he put on Josh Gordon, Olav Shalom, and he put him on double speed, and he heard him quite quickly, and Mamele, he was Yoitze his Shiur Rambam. That's what he told me. And I told him, I'm not really sure you could be Yoitze your Shiur Rambam by listening to Josh Gordon. I mean, l'chure, you have to say the Rambam, or you hear it from someone live. No, there's live meaning actually hearing it from him, not via telephone or whatever, actually live, because then it's Shemei Koina. But obviously, just like you can be Yoitze Megillah with hearing a video, or so you can't be Yoitze Rambam. And that person started whatever. It's not important how he reacted to me as being like mamish, someone that's completely not begeder b'chlal. So we say I didn't. Then he tells me he's going to ask somebody. I'm not going to mention his name. Someone that's his Rav, which is be'emes, a very chashuv person. I'm very bottle for him. I didn't hear from him, and I would say very. I'm certainly bottle for him, and he came back to me and he says he asked this person, this Rav, and the person told him there's no problem. There's no problem at all. That's what he told me. In my mind, I mean, you could hear a Rambam shir from somebody, according to the Alter Rebbe, without saying Birchas HaTorah. You don't have to say Birchas HaTorah in order to hear a Rambam shir.
Isn't there a mitzvah of Yedias HaTorah, of just learning?
There's definitely a mitzvah of Yedias HaTorah. There's definitely an inyan of learning Torah, the inyan of understanding Torah. It's not Chas v'Shalom, you're not learning Torah. But the mitzvah of the Dibarta Bom, that you're supposed to say Torah, learn Torah, is certainly, it's clear that there's no chiyuv of Birchas HaTorah if you're listening to a shir on the telephone or on wherever. If you're not saying the Torah or you're not hearing it live, there's no chiyuv of Birchas HaTorah according to the Alter Rebbe. Not everyone agrees, but according to the Alter Rebbe. And Memele, and the Alter Rebbe writes it clearly in Tanya. He writes it in Tanya, he writes it in Shulchan Aruch. It's very pashut. So Memele, in my mind, it was very hard to believe that you could be yoitze the inyan of the takon of the Rebbe to learn Rambam every day before Birchas HaTorah. It's hard for me to believe.
Some people would like to say that specifically, even before Birchas HaTorah is the etzem of I'm kidding.
Could be. So therefore, I found it to be very there's diyunim. Listen, when you say Sefer HaMitzvahs, so the Moshe, I'm not 100% sure the mocker. This is the way.
Because they're written in Hebrew, you mean? Because he didn't write it in Hebrew?
The Rambam did write it in Hebrew.
Sefer mitzvahs as well?
No, I'm talking about the mitzvahs that the
Oh,
Rambam
I thought you said Sefer mitzvahs. I'm sorry.
We're not talking about Sefer mitzvahs. We're talking about the mitzvahs that the Rambam writes in the beginning of the Rambam. The Moshe, when the Rambam says the numbers, is by me, it's also a davar apasha that you're supposed to say the numbers. Whereas when the Rambam says mitzvah aleph, mitzvah beis, mitzvah gimel, or the Rambam says yesh bezeh, hilchis say that yesh bedart nesa mitzvahs. These amount of mitzvahs I say, mitzvahs shesh mitzvahs say, arb mitzvahs whatever, and then he tells you aleph, beis, gimel, l'chura. The pasha you have to say aleph, beis, gimel, dalet. That's l'chura pashat. It's my mind is pashat. Just like Benigeya, you're saying in Tanya, when you're learning Tanya, so the Shiur Tanya starts with Perik Aleph or Perik Beis. That's how the Shiur Tanya starts. It doesn't start with the words of Perik Aleph, Perik Beis. I once heard from Rabbi Yale. He told me over from somebody. I forgot already from who. So he says when someone that's not a chassid learns the Gemara Amar Abaya, so the Torah starts after Abaya starts talking. Masha'inkin, when someone's a chassid learns Amar Abaya, so the Torah starts with Amar Abaya. It didn't start when Abaya starts talking. Amar Abaya is also part of the Torah. Also part of the If Bedusi is part of Torah, so Amar Abaya is part of Torah. And this is so Perik Aleph, Perik Rishon, Perik Sheni, Perik Shlishi. This is this like sickle taina to the when the Rambam in maybe it's Chabad.org. Chabad.org has English Rambam, and Memela, and you have the Rambam. So in the English, it says chapter 3, but in the Hebrew it doesn't say Perik Shlishi. There's no capital of Perik Shlishi in the Hebrew. Derech Hagav, this is just a ha'ara on. I don't know if it's Chabad.org, it's a ha'ara, or it's a ha'ara Maznayim that printed Tauger's Rambam. But I'll talk upon him. So the answer is, in my mind, the Seichel says that you have to say the Rambam. It's very hard because l'chura you want to be ma'ir, people listen to Shiur, and if a person has to say it and say listen, it could be that's a little bit of thing. So it could be that this person that asked this Rav, which is Choshev Rav, he felt that this person is very good for him to hear a shiur and understand what he's learning. And Memela, and if he's going to tell me he has to say it, so he's not going to hear a shiur, and Memela he's going to be mavater understanding what he's learning. So then you have to, so his Chavez Das one was that this was preferable to this. That's my thought on the matter.
Okay, interesting.
But I don't know. That's already you have to ask a competent Chassidish Orthodox rabbi. Lately, I heard a word that there's like non-practicing Orthodox Jews. There's a new music called non. So you have to have a Chassidic practicing Orthodox rabbi. That's a nachamus. Anyways,
moving on to another thing. I've heard it rumored that this is not the first time that you've officially delivered Tanya Shiurim, that the Rambam Shiurim, that in the early days of the beginning of the Takanas Rambam in 770, you also were running a Tanya Shiur, and the Rebbe was at the oil. Is there any interest or any?
I mean, the truth of the matter is that those years there was like a lot of people listening to, they were listening to music, waiting to know that the Rebbe came back from the oil. And Memela, so there was a svara that instead of just listening to music or whatever.
What do you mean listening to music? What do you mean listening to music?
There was people that were connected. Those people that had phones in those years, in order to have there was a phone connection between WLCC.
Right, Chaim Baruch had that line,
and people would have their own lines. They would rent their own lines.
Right.
Now people wanted to know if the Rebbe came back from the oil or when the Rebbe was coming back from the oil. And those years there were like very often sichas when the Rebbe would come back. So in Mela they would call in. Let's say the shkia was 8:00. So they would call in and they would be on the phone, and they'd wait till they hear that the Rebbe is back. there would be such a concept. Question, what happened in the middle? There was some music or something. So there was a svara that in between there should be a Shir Rambam. So at that point in time, I remember doing like Madanava. It was like, Madanava.
Easy.
What?
Yeah.
But Lepel, I don't know what happened to it. It was like, it was 3 Perokim a day. I don't know what happened to it. I once asked Yenison Hackner. He also doesn't know what happened to those Shiur and what happened to those. I would like sometimes come middle of the night and put it down, whatever. I mean, I'm just saying that those years.
Very nice. Okay, we just finished Sefer Hafla'ah. Rabbi Wollberg, is there something that piqued your interest this time around? Something that perked your that might be worthwhile to share to an audience that's now celebrating the conclusion of Sefer Hafla'ah?
Glad that you're speaking like this, because you were just speaking about the Indian of saying Rambam. It's important to say Rambam.
That's the title of this whole chapter. This whole book is talking, saying.
So my question is, what does the word Hafla'ah really mean? What does the word Hafla'ah really mean? So I looked somewhere or another. My recollection, Hafla'ah means to articulate. That's what I always thought Hafla'ah means. Hafla'ah means to articulate. But then I looked up the Rashi. And let's look like this. When the Rambam doesn't mention, but the Rambam in the beginning of Hilchis Shvuos says that a shvua you only chayiv if you actually say it with your mouth, and he says the words levati bisvasayim. That's what the words he brings. Then in the Dorim, he also says that you have to say it, you articulate it, and he also says al derech v'shvuos. That's what he says, al derech like shvuos. When it comes to Nazirus, and over there he starts speaking about that Kinuya Nazirus Kinazirus, so he says even though that Nazirus also has to be articulated, and he brings the pasuk that over there is lahafli neder. So the pasuk means because it's a neder, and a neder has to be articulated. It doesn't mean because of the word lahafli. He doesn't say because it says kiyafli. He says it's a neder, so it's a neder, has to be articulated. It's already in Ilchus Nedarim. So really, the Rambam doesn't really clearly write, as far as I remember a little bit. I mean, I didn't look at, that the Rambam, when he speaks about that it has to be articulated, he speaks about, because it says, Levati b'shvusayim b'shvuos, and somewhere or another that continues on in Neder. So somewhere or another, my mind was, Yafli means to articulate. So I looked up the Rashi, it says the Pasuk in Nose, where it speaks about the Parsha of Nazirus. And over there it says, Ish Yisha Kiyafli Linder Neder Nazir Lashem. So the truth of the matter is, the Unkelus says, Are Yeforish Lemidar Nidor Naziru. So he teaches Lahafli Yafli Yeforish. Yeforish Lachura means to articulate.
Right.
That's Lachura. Rashi teaches Yafli Yafrish. Yafrish.
To set aside.
Yafrish sounds like separate. Separate, Yafrish. But then Lahat Neder Nazir Ein Zira B'chol Mokem Ele Prisha. So it's almost like a redundancy. In other words, Yafli, Rashi says Yafli means Yafrish. Now what does Yafrish mean? Yafrish sounds like separate. So that's what it says here. So the Maisa is just a little, I don't want to bore you with too many details. There's the Svarim that has all the Mefarshi Rashi. So there's a Nachlas Yankiv. Nachlas Yankiv is like a Sefer Kadmon. It's like it was printed before the Alter Rebbe was born. It was printed top Pevov. So, and over there he writes that Yafrish is not Miloshin speak. Yafrish means Miloshin separate. No,
meaning you're verbally setting something aside by you're saying the
word verbally, you added the word verbally. Kiyafli, a person will be setting something aside.
He's setting himself aside, or he's setting that item aside by saying I don't want to.
Maybe he's setting the item aside, or maybe he's setting himself aside from an item, or the item from him. But somehow or another it means setting aside. That's what the Nachlas Yankiv says. Now there's another pirush that's also in these Yudal of Mefarshi Rashi.
Isn't that the actual translation? Yafli Apella, something which is removed and wonderous. It's set aside. Isn't that the actual?
Okay, say that. Say them. But I'm just saying that the Targum teaches Yiforish. Rashi says Yafrish. I mean, we're assuming that the Yud is Meduyik, Yafrish. I mean, no one's going to take out a Yud from a Yafrish of Rashi. Now, there's a Be'er Hasoda, which is also printed over there with the yellow thing, which is a much later, it's like his Tough Reish something. He's a later Pirush. And he brings the Nachas Yankiv. And in Taina, it's not true. That's not the Pshat. Yafli means to verbalize, to articulate. And he brings two Rashis, which in those two Rashis are also, there's a certain, I would say, ambiguity in those two Rashis. Sai in Bahar and Sai B'chukei. There's a Rashi in Bahar, which over there speaks about, what does he say over there in Bahar? I don't remember. Where is it? He says, where's the Rashi? Where's the Rashi? Someone help me out with the Rashi. In Bahar, there's a Rashi. Oh, there's a Rashi. No? There's a Rashi.
Oh, you can continue. It's okay.
And then there's another Rashi. There's a Rashi in also in B'chukei, at the end of B'chukei, where over there Rashi like uses both L'shenis. No, someone. Where's somebody there? No Chumash. Where are we? Kitzer.
I mean, Wollberg, go ahead.
All right. But he brings those two Rashis, and them is those two Rashis. Rashi says Yafrish bepiv. Somehow or another, Rashi says Yafrish bepiv in those both Rashis, and he tines that the ikar of the word of the Rashi is the bepiv, not the kiyafli. I have it in pasuk in Kapitel Chav Zayin pasuk base kiyafli. Pasuk says Dabro b'nei Yisrael ish kiyafli neder be'erken nefashos l'Hashem, which is erchim. She says, what does yafli mean? Yafrish bepiv. Yafrish bepiv. So he's saying the ikar is the bepiv. The yafli is not the yafrish, the bepiv. And al derazeh in Bahar, there's also such a Rashi, which is yafrish bepiv. So b'kitzur, we have the word hafla'ah. We have the word yafla'ah, meaning the Targum certainly teaches yifarish. Rashi says yafrish. The Nachas Yankov says that it means yafrish, it doesn't mean yifarish. The Berasah, the time is that it means yifarish. What does the Rambam hold? So we have a Rambam, a Mefurish Rambam, because the Rambam in the beginning of the Hakdama, he tells us about the names of the Svarim that he is going to write, and he writes Sefer Shishi, Echlol bei Mitzvahs, she is chayer behem, mi she'aser atzmi b'dvorim, ki gein shvuas nedorim, v'korasi shem Sefer zeh, Sefer Hafla'ah.
To translate, just for those.
So l'chura, he's saying that the inyan of the Sefer is someone that's misha aser atzmei bidvarim, spoke, he asked something on himself through articulation, through talking, and then he says v'karasi shem Sefer Hafla'ah. So l'chura, the Rambam is assuming that the word Hafla'ah is somehow or another a means of expressing himself.
So practically, what is the difference whether it's you're setting yourself aside or you're verbally addressing? Is there any practical?
No, I'm not talking about practical. I want to know the type of the word. By me, it's not the practical Indian over here. I want to know what the type. We're talking about Sefer Hafla'ah. So Sefer Hafla'ah, the Sefer of being separated. Erchin is not separating. Erchin is committing yourself to a certain giving money. You know, Nedarim is separating yourself, Shuas is separating yourself, Naziris is separating yourself. Erchin, if that's separating yourself, it wouldn't be, you're not separating yourself. Lepel, the word Hafla'ah says in Erchin. It's not going to lepel. I'm just saying, since Hafla'ah is in of Dibur, so therefore I felt it was appropriate to speak about that Dibur that you spoke about when again that conversation. This is what my input into it.
Very nice. Which before we actually conclude the Siyum, I guess this is just apropos. I enjoy listening to your Shiur, not only in Rambam but in general, whatever I can find online. And you are you're known and enjoyed as someone who likes to really get to the heart of something, and therefore it might be a bit difficult for people who enjoy that to actually cover 3 prakim of Rambam. I'm wondering if you have any insight. Some people say, I'll learn 1 parak, I'll really be able to do it well. 3 prakim is something which, especially if you enjoy Rabbi Wollberg and you enjoy discussing for 10 minutes what the word Hafla'ah means, it sometimes can be almost annoying to go through 3 prakim of Rambam. I'm wondering, as we conclude over here, this is a crowd who is dedicated to 3 prakim Rambam, which can sometimes be difficult. If you have any thoughts to share before we actually conclude the Siyum.
The Maisa say, I mean, it was very clear from the Rebbe that 3 prakim was considered, as far as the Rebbe was concerned, the standard way of learning. He certainly gave a place for 1 perik. Anyone that tainas against 1 perik is like, the Rebbe definitely gave a place for 1 perik. He gave a very strong union of 3 prakim, very strong union for 3 prakim. I mean, really, what ideally should happen is that we should learn 3 prakim a day. And then there should be another Seder in learning Rambam. In other words, there should be 2 Sdarim in learning Rambam. There should be a learning of Seder of learning 3 prakim a day. And then there should be a Seder of learning Rambam where a person feels that he wants to learn Rambam and understand Rambam. Whatever speed. And eventually he learned through Rambam. And I could say, we'll put it this way. You're learning Rambam, you're learning Rambam 3 prakim a day. We all know that there are certain halachas, including halachas that happen today in the Sefer Zroim, which are not really so easy to understand, the technical, the aspect, and it would take a lot of time and effort to sit down and actually learn it. So let's say a person that's not so, we're really supposed to be motivated in Limud HaTorah. As Yidden, we're supposed to be motivated in Limud HaTorah, as Chassidim, as Yidden, etc., etc. But let's say we're not so motivated in Limud HaTorah, but we feel a strong sense of that we want to do what the Rebbe wants us to do. Besides learning, you understand what I'm saying, as far as Rambam is concerned. So I would say that there would be a really gather of Torah L'Shma, that you want to learn Rambam now, Hilches, I don't know what, Sefer, Avodah, Karbonis, in order that when you're going to come to learn Avodah and Karbonis, when Rabbi Resnick will be saying it, so you'll understand it better. And Memela, so your Kiyum mitzvah, your Kiyum takana, it'll be done behidur. And that should be the motivation for learning Rambam now. In other words, a Yid should have, I think a Lubavitcher Yid should want to know Rambam. That's somehow or another, I think that's what, maybe when young Bachram are younger, they should be learning also, maybe slower, maybe, I don't know, again, I'm afraid of Yaakov Tzvius that might be at the audience here. So I'm not 100% sure about any way promoting on what level, saying that there's a certain place for a Perek Echad Layem.
No, but it's a beautiful thought that we should, once we learn Rambam, then the 3 prakim will actually be something we'll be able to appreciate.
We should learn Rambam. There should be a very serious Seder of learning Rambam, where we're not really like rushing. And we're learning, and we're trying to understand to the best of our ability. And we talk one another, touch the word Hafla'ah.
So on that note, if we can ask Rabbi Wollberg, now we'll be Messiahim, Sefer Hafla'ah, and we'll right away. We'll actually put it up on the screen. Hopefully they'll put it up on the screen, and we'll actually be Messiahim the actual final halacha of Sefer Hafla'ah. If we can ask them to please do that. Okay, here we go.
So last halacha means, you're still there?
Yeah, okay, here we are. Le'elam, there you see it on the screen.
Le'elam, le'yagdish adam, le'yachrim kol nechosav. V'hoisekein, Ever al das HaKosov, shari huemer mi kol hashalei, v'lei kol hashalei. So that's, since it says mi kol hashalei, so that's called Oiver al das HaKosov. Also, it's interesting lashon. Al das HaKosov. That it says mi kol hashalei, v'lei kol hashalei. K'mishabiro chacham. Ve'en zu chassidus, to go ahead and be machrum kol nechosav wouldn't go into a gather of chassidus, el shtus. Sharehu ma'abed kol mameinei, and v'yitztarech lebrius. So that's the shtus, a person putting himself in a situation where yitztarach lebrius. And memela, since it's a shtus, is ve'im rachman olav. Ubezeh ukiyetze be'omru chachamim that choset sheta miklal mevali elam. Elakol ha'mefazer mameni b'mitzvahs al yefazer yesim michemish. V'yiyah k'meshetzivoch neviim mechalkel dvarav b'mishpat. That b'chlal dvarav should be done b'mishpat with mishpat means with judgment. Bein b'divrei Torah, bein b'divrei elam. Afilu b'korban she'adam chayav b'hem. Harichos Torah lamam v'omra sheyavi k'fi misas yodei. So kal v'chemer l'dvarim shleinis chayav b'hem ela machmas nidrei sheliyinder ela koroyle shenama ish k'matnas yodei kivirchas Hashem elikecha asher nosan loch. Brich Rachmana Desayon Nigmar Sefer Shishi Be'ezas Shin Daled Yud.
Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and now we're going to immediately, although we actually, Rabbi Wollberg just told us we should be reading all these details, but let us at least just put the haskalah together, the very first halacha in Hilchot Sefer Zerayim that Rambam teaches us, if someone sows and plants two seeds together in the land of Israel, is like he gets malchus that you're not allowed to plant and sow kilayim together. Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Wollberg. This was enjoyable as always. To actually hear you in person is more enjoyable than actually hearing you on the recording. But we in America now hear you on recordings more than we do live in person. Thank you very much. Many successful years of raising generations of Talmidim, and may we all be motivated to learn Sefer Zerayim, which is, as Rabbi Wollberg says, sometimes can be technically challenging. I think that's when I use Rabbi Tauger's translation more than any other book for my shiurim, is figuring out all these different types of plants and vegetations and botany. It requires a little bit of scientific knowledge as well to appreciate what you can and put together. And we should all be motivated to really delve into the Sefer. Thank you very much, Rabbi Cantor, and all those who are motivating behind this. Yasher koach.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. V'siris tevis. And aksivach semetayva, everybody. As we conclude Shnas Hakel, this is the final. Is this the final Siyum before Hakel? Before Shnas Hakel, are we going to finish Zerayim before Hakel? I don't have the Meir Shiur, but I don't know if we're going to finish. This might be the final Siyum of Shnas Hakel, Tafshin Pei Gimel. Yasher koach. Thank you very much.